In my 30 plus year career, I've been fortunate enough to see some of the most amazing technological advances the world has ever known. More importantly, I have, along that same journey, met some of the most fascinating people the world has ever known. I wanted to take some time and get to know them beyond the technology, find out how they got into the industry, what they've done to be successful, what makes them tick, what keeps them motivated, and honestly, what keeps them sane and human in a world that oftentimes seems out of control. In this episode, I speak with Joshua Gideon, leader, security expert, father, and author of the new book, Don't Forget the Humans. We had a fascinating conversation, and I really hope you enjoy it. You've been granted authenticated access. Now let's get started. Josh, welcome to Authenticated Access.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I mean, much like me, I know you've spent years kind of navigating this ever-changing security and technology landscape. The complexities of business has radically changed, and of course, the threats that we see are kind of constantly evolving. On
Mhm.
top of that, you're a parent, an author, a people manager, and a leader. So
Yeah.
you've got kind of this, I think, rare blend of hands-on engineering experience, but also this kind of human-centric thinking that I think is more and more critical with each passing day. So I kind of want to start there. When you look back on your journey that you've taken so far, like, was there a moment that stood out that shaped how you think about security and technology?
Yeah, I think there's some highlights that some of those aha moments where everything clicked. I think there's seeds that are planted throughout your life that kind of get you to that point where you have that aha moment. I think, and I talk about this in my book. The One of my earliest things pre cybersecurity world and tech world was one of my teachers, my third grade teacher, who kind of sparked that curiosity piece, and kind of planted that seed that really got me into the whole tech world and thinking that way. Um, as I guess there were some other seeds probably that were planted. But I think the real big aha moment for me that's really shaped my cybersecurity career, well, my tech career and a lot of my life, to be honest, was a situation where I had been, this was before cybersecurity was really a thing in most
Sure.
companies.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they're telling my age a little bit here.
I remember those days well, actually. Yeah.
So, but I was handed over firewalls and content filtering systems and all that because I was kind of the senior network guy. So,
Yep. Yep.
so they were like, "Hey, here's all this security related stuff. You're going to manage all that." And that for an early kid in his early 20s, that's a pretty big responsibility, and I think I let that ego go a little to my head.
Hmm.
You know and I think as I got into that a little bit more, uh, uh, the I kind of got addicted to that chase of finding things, and that combination of young age and a little bit of the that excitement. I ended up at one point thinking I found something that was big, and um, content filter set off a flag, said that somebody had been surfing inappropriate websites. Um, and I dug into that really aggressively, and not not detailed enough, obviously, from the outcome of that. But uh, I ended up being a lady who had cancer and was looking at some websites related to that. And obviously the dumb content filter couldn't tell me the context behind the person there and the
Yeah.
details there. And I aggressively went to HR or personnel management, I think is what it was called at the time.
Yep. Yep.
and and they ended up pleading my case. We did the whole investigation thing, and I ended up looking pretty bad in that situation. Felt bad, felt awful, and kind of learned a lesson there. That was, hey, there's people behind the data that I'm looking at, um, and talking about those seeds, I should have known that, because one of the things that kind of got me to that networking level was as I did like worked help desk, and I started out on help desk,
Yep. Same. Yep.
and I found that the more personal I got with people, the understanding that person behind the keyboard,
Yeah.
I did a better job, with the tech side of things, and so I should have known that. The thing that was successful for me that got me to where I was the one thing I forgot about, and
Oh,
put
goodness.
me in that situation. And you know,
Yeah, it's so fascinating how those, like you mentioned, those moments kind of crop up. And also interesting that, you talked a little bit about the help desk. Because one of my moments actually came from my help desk, early help desk job as well. And that was, I had a call that came in from like an executive assistant, and we were working through something, and she said, I'm glad that you were the one that answered the phone, because what I appreciate about you is that you are able to explain these technology situations in words that I can understand.
yeah,
And what I didn't tell her was that was probably because I'm not smart enough to speak at that other level. So there's
yeah,
some value in being who I am. But, I
yeah,
think I also learned very early on from, that kind of rapid fire conversations that you have on a help desk. It really does kind of give you that idea of the humans behind the technology, right? And that,
yeah,
I think even if we fast forward to now, like they're not trying to be malicious, they're not dumb, they're not just end user. Like
no,
they have a job that they're trying to do. And sometimes we're not giving them the technology to do their job correctly. So it's probably
yeah,
maybe more on us even than it is on them. But I love those
yeah,
moments. I've got a few of them that have really stuck out over and kind of the same. Like I remember a time when the network team was the security team. They didn't
hmm
have those things, and even further back, which is scary to think of all the changes that we've seen. Of like I
oh
remember a
yeah,
time before Wi-Fi. Like putting in
yeah,
magical Wi-Fi for the first time, and what is this wizardry? And how far we've come. So, but I think that let's piggyback off of that a little bit, because one of the things that I see with a lot of younger people coming into the industry now at a different place than kind of how we grew up through it.
hmm
We and I think we have had similar paths based on our conversations
yeah,
of, from help desk to desktop support to network support and server support and system support. And then, security became a thing and made those moves. But I
right,
think a lot of young people now are they're going to college for a security degree. We didn't
yeah,
have that option, and they're kind of jumping right into security roles without having that
hmm
IT background. So,
yeah,
when you are hiring people for your team and your organization, knowing
hmm
that maybe the people you're looking at are missing all of that baseline that we grew up with. Like, what are some things that you look for in a person that you're trying to hire?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, you know, I'm going to break it up into a few different things. So I'll address the technical side. So your technical skills are um, a very quickly depleting skill as soon as you learn it. What's the 3 year cycle of technology? Philosophy. So theoretically, if I learn something today in 3 years, it's going to be outdated. Um,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people have focused on that in the past, and I'm not as focused on what technology they currently know. Um, I want to see a pattern of learning, continuous learning. Um, I want to see what they've been passionate about, what they've continued learning about, and that's one of the things I look at is do they have that history while they were going to school? Did they, what have they tinkered around with? Do they have a home lab? Do they, that shows me that they have that technical skill and are continuing to develop it and understand that that the technical side is just a continuous learning thing. They're gonna, if they want to stay in this career, they have to just continually be learning. It doesn't stop at a university. It doesn't stop at a certification. It's a constant learning thing. Um, so that's the technical side.
Sure. Yep. That
But
makes perfect sense.
and I'm seeing a lot of, yeah, maybe not a lot, but a percentage of the students coming out with certifications and degrees have those technical skills and have shown that progress over time. It can tell a story about that progress at least. Um, the the other side is the soft skills, and that's where I'm really struggling to find people that have those soft skills. We talked about it, our histories, and going from help desk and working our way up. I don't think it was just. I think it was the lessons that we learned from that developed our soft skills. That are lacking in a lot of young people coming straight out of college or straight out of a certification program.
Yeah.
And that's when I see somebody who has those skills, it's like I could work with that. Are you curious? You know, are you willing to learn and have and have proven that you're willing to consistently learn and keep up on the technical? And do you have those soft skills? That's something I can work with. I will invest my time and energy into somebody like that to build them up.
Yeah, I talk a lot about that too, to, some of the younger people that I've been mentoring or coaching or presenting to. I get a lot of questions of like, well, how do you develop those soft skills? Because I do think that's a part that's kind of, I agree totally that that's something that's just missing. There's probably a lot of reasons for that, but let's where is
Mm.
it? Is it education? Is it like where do you think like where should those things, where are they missing from? Like where are kids not getting that today?
Wow, that's tough. So yeah,
Open
yeah,
up a
right.
can
That's
there, but
yeah.
yeah.
Um, I think it depends on the generation, but I have a daughter that's in college right now, about to graduate, and looking at her age group and those just a little bit older than her, um, who there's a lot of colleges that are completely online now. Um, a lot of certification programs where you only show up to you only touch grass, I think is what the kids say. When you go to take the exam, and there's they've been mostly isolated or put in this virtual world where they don't get as much of those skills. They don't get to practice those soft skills as much. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. I think so much of the world, I find it interesting that we live in a world with more ways to communicate than ever in human history, and yet we've probably gotten worse at communicating with each other at any point in human history as well. And a lot of it, I think, is because of this technology. That's where I do think, and I talk a lot, and certainly like the networking side of it. For people that are just starting their careers, like find some groups. There's lots of them out there. There's lots of
yeah,
different organizations out there. Like find your people. The one that's right for you might be different for someone else, but find your people and find that group where you can have that kind of sociability, that in-person kind of networking component, because if it's just staring at screens, it's hard to develop some of those skills, right?
yeah, absolutely. I remember early on in my career, I met up with some people in Ohio. I don't even remember what the group was called. It was just like a little hacking group, and they were all centered around social engineering. That was the big thing at the time. And I learned so much from them. They would do like challenges and stuff like that. Go into a coffee place and see if they'll give you a free glass of water, and stuff like that. And it was just that learning those social skills on how do I go in there and how do I accomplish this, and I ended up using that on an internship that we had. I ended up kind of using that same philosophy for those students that came through the internship program, and it was interesting. Most of them did not have those skills, and they were learning, and it was fun to watch them. And I will say this: they are up for that challenge. Just because they don't have that skill doesn't mean that they're unable to learn that, or that they don't want to learn that. They
Yeah.
truly do. And I got to watch, I think it was 5 people just completely break out of their shells. And, you know, I had them, trying to, you know, social engineer their way up elevators and to floors they weren't allowed to have access on. And, we had them. We had them going all over town doing stuff. It was really good for them to develop those um, uh, those soft skills. I
Yeah. Well, and I think that's another great point that you made there, because I don't think it's the fault of the kids not wanting these skills, right? It's maybe we haven't done a good job of giving them opportunities to develop them, or the world is just in a place where we don't get enough opportunities to develop them. Because I
yeah
know, like, events that I've put on and things that I've hosted, like, people are really clamoring for that sort of thing,
yeah
more than some of the technical stuff, where I'm seeing a lot of technical people that are really, really hungry for kind of this other stuff, especially
yeah
this younger generation that's coming up. And to all of you younger generation people that are watching this, dig into this stuff, because this is what will make your career, is developing those soft skills. So this gets us all to this like human side of technology. I kind of joke a lot of, like, we live in a world of ones and zeros, but people still like to deal with people that they know and trust, and there's still a human component of this. I want to dive into your book a little bit.
Yeah.
if it'll show up on screen here. I do have it. Just don't forget the humans. That I won't lie and say I've read it all, but I am reading it. And
Thank
it's
you.
there will be a link in the description, so go buy it. And but I see a lot of like there's a lot of books that are out there that are like something happened, I'm going to report on it, kind of backward looking. There's a lot of books that like this is what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years. I
Mhm.
feel like somehow you managed to come up with a topic that is, and obviously you didn't write it today. So but you wrote a book at a time where it's completely relevant to the world that we live in.
Mhm.
So first talk a little bit about like the genesis of this idea.
Mhm.
Like what was it that made you go, I got to put this down on paper?
Yeah. So I think it started out as um, a bunch of notes that I had thrown together. Kind of mentoring like you have. I get a lot of questions from people, and you know, those have those spark ideas every once in a while, and I write them down. And I try to write pretty regularly, even if it's something that is never going to go anywhere, just to keep those skills up. Um, so I had just this folder full of a bunch of little blurbs that I had written. Um, and it's kind of goes back to that, the seed idea where all these
Yeah.
little seeds, kind of, it took a lot for dumb Josh to figure out, that oh, I've got something here, finally, eureka, um, and I think it was just looking back on my life and some of the challenges that I faced and knowing that other people, especially the younger people that are going into this, that are wanting to break into the cybersecurity industry,
Yeah.
uh, and even those in there are constantly having this, imposter syndrome, and they, do I really belong? Do I, and all that. And I just wanted to try to show people that that's okay and that's normal. And it's been happening for 30 years. you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I'm approaching 30 years in this industry. I've seen the .com stuff, e-commerce, and all the the big data centers, because you have to have those, to cloud, to you know I mean, we've seen uh, you know uh, apps on your local machine that move to web-based apps, and
Yeah.
we've seen these things over the years, these trends of the advancement of technology, and I humans have survived those. Um, we're pretty resilient. Um, we've 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 gone through a lot of other evolutions over the years, and I just kind of wanted to tell that story, and let people know that we still have we're going to survive this. You know, it looks scary and everything, but we've been through other things before. You know, I we'll be fine, and just wanted to kind of encourage people. So
Yeah. No, it's such a fascinating take because I do, I think as this AI thing is, we got like 20 minutes in without talking about our AI, but
yeah, I know,
we're
right? Pat ourselves on the back.
but I think as this thing is, I've been kind of diving into it as much as I can recently, and I think stuff that the thought was, this will be happening in
Mhm.
2028. Oh, nope, now it's in 2025. Like
Right.
the snowball is can perpetually running faster on this AI technology. I do think it's scary. So I recently gave a keynote presentation for a university here to both current technology students and prospective ones. And then we did some breakout sessions after that. And the number one question that I got with almost every single question was related to, am I going into an industry? Am I spending money? Am I educating myself for jobs that are not going to be here in by the time that I get done with this education? So I
Mm,
do think that the fear is real.
yeah,
But my response back was it's here.
yeah,
We're not going to reverse this. So
yeah,
your option right now is to like lean into it because there is going to need to be humans still in control of these systems that we're putting in place.
yeah. I believe so too. Uh, and the consumer is a human too, you know. So there has to be you know there has to be that human element to the AI technology. I don't. I, I mean, maybe I'm naive, and maybe the robots will look back on this and laugh at us. But but I see that blended model, where just like with you know the internet itself. I remember when the internet wasn't a thing. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and that was, oh, wait a second. Oh, this is going to put libraries out of business because now there's no need.
yeah, that's true.
And to some
Yeah.
extent, it has, you know. They're still there. They still have a purpose, you and, you know, I think we're just going to see that blended model. You know, generations accept things at different levels. And as long as we have some generations that are resisting the AI stuff, um, we will still have that blended model. Um, and I think that goes in waves too. Younger people are starting to, kind of backtrack, and they're out buying DVDs now and asking
Yep.
their parents for their old DVD players. You
Yep.
know, and it's
Records,
like
records are
records
or
are big.
albums are real
Yeah,
popular.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I, I think humanity wants that. They see AI as a useful tool. At least some of us do. Um, and they want to take that and apply it in a responsible way. Um, and I'm sure there are
Yeah.
people who are reckless about it, but I think the majority of people do just want to find a responsible way to integrate this new technology into things.
And I do think if it's done right, it does have the ability to enhance all of the things that we're doing.
Sure.
I think there certainly will be changes in certain jobs and certain industries will be
Yeah.
affected more than others. But again, at the same time, it's such an opportunity for people to lean into this new technology to actually somewhat future proof your career as best as anyone can by, I mean, to become
Yeah.
one of the people that's enabling this technology more than,
Yeah.
being fearful of it.
Yeah, I think we've seen that over the years, though. We've seen that network engineers are not going to exist because everything's going to be in the cloud. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
they're cloud engineers now. You know, you know.
And to your earlier point, we kind of are winding up in a hybrid space there, right? Where we're
Yeah,
finding some things work well in the cloud, some things work well on
that's right.
prem. So, are
Yeah.
there some things that AI will do better than humans? Yes. Are there some
Yep.
things that humans will continue to do better or only be able to do? Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I find these pendulum swings in technology and I think in life in general, but certainly in this industry always kind of wind up somewhere in the middle because I do remember
Yeah.
that like everything is going to go to the cloud and I saw a lot of organizations that like jumped into that and they moved everything to the cloud and then they're like whoa, this is expensive, and like maybe that was not the right. So I feel like
Yeah.
people have done a good job at this point of like balancing out their infrastructures to finding the right places for things. We can do the same with AI, right?
absolutely. And I think it comes down to one thing, and it's a human thing. It's trust.
Hmm.
I think that you know, why do we not put some things in the cloud? Sometimes it's a trust issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just don't trust that cloud provider with that information because it's so sensitive, it's so important, to our organization that we don't trust that. You uh, AI making algorithms making decisions. You know, we there are some things we don't trust. Well, shoot, we don't even trust humans sometimes. One human to make a decision, so we give multiple humans. Yeah, so uh, I think I think why we have those hybrid models of that blended thing is because we need to humans need to feel comfortable with it and comfortable with what it's doing and
Yep.
how it's protecting data. Um,
Yeah, and I think if I go back to that pendulum example, right? The pendulum, it seems extreme when the pendulum is really swinging out here. But
yeah,
as you start getting closer to the center, things normalize a little bit. So I think, right now we're
absolutely.
in that kind of extreme space where we don't exactly know what this is going to look like, but if we just wait a little while, right, as this all starts to normalize down a little bit, I undoubtedly think humans will not only find their way through it, but as with all technology, like we'll continue to advance ourselves as well once we realize that, this technology is a tool for us to be better at what we do.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I want to address something real quick that you had mentioned with the students, um,
yeah.
that said, is what I'm learning right now going to even be useful for and I want to challenge that thinking a little bit. Um, are the courses that you're taking, the curriculum, the technology that you're learning, um, going to be useful when you get into a career? Maybe at first, but it will go away. That education that what you should be learning are those core underlying principles. Why do you go to college? To learn how to learn.
Yeah.
To learn that some things take a little bit longer and take some endurance. You things aren't just given to you overnight. A degree program takes a period of time. So you're learning those skills that are way more important than the degree. I don't care what that degree's in. You can still learn those core principles behind. Same thing with the certification program. You know, I got to learn how ISACA does their tests, or and they're all different.
Yep.
The and it's that journey that is more important than the destination on that. Um, and I think these young people just need to be thinking about that. And maybe some of us older people too. If I had gotten a cybersecurity degree in 1998, do you know how useful that would be to me today? Nothing, zero.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Yeah, the
except for core principles. You know,
right. Yep.
what are those? What are those core principles for that? And that's I think that's I challenge them to think that way.
Yeah, that's a great point because, if I look back on and I'm probably even a little older than you, I started in like the early 90s. And the technology that I was either getting certified on or becoming proficient in, most of it doesn't even exist anymore. So,
Yeah.
but again, I think just keeping yourself kind of forward thinking, keeping yourself in that like growth and education mindset, learning all of the soft skills, things that you can, you know, you mentioned how like things can change, but humans can evolve along with it. we can in our career too. And that's another thing that I do try to talk with, especially again the younger generation that's coming in about is like where you're at right now isn't where you're going to be in 5 years. And so, and don't look at people that are like 20 years into their career and think that's where I should be, because it's not, that's not how this works. I think, you have to know that you're starting somewhere and you got to build it out. Build out your career, and you'll look back 5 years from now and be like, wow, the world is different. So am I. So is my career, but I'm
Right.
still in it and I'm still doing well. So.
I have had so many evolutions of that, from going from technical to, you know, security and networking to, your career just evolves, and that's okay. And sometimes it goes down, you know. So sometimes you're in a management position and you have an opportunity to go back to the technical side, to do something you're super passionate about. So you take that, and that's not a step down necessarily. It's a parallel or whatever. And you
Yeah.
do that for a while, and then you work your way back up into a management position, because that's just inevitable when you're good at what you do. Yeah. Right.
So, um, having been in your career as long as you have and achieved a level of success that you have, um, what is something besides a paycheck, which we all need, but what is something that keeps you motivated now at this stage of your career to not only continue to be better yourself, but also the people around you? Like what is your motivator?
I think being a good example to, I'm kind of in that phase of my life where I'm trying to be a good example to other people, and to, um, I have those core philosophies of, the don't forget the humans philosophy, obviously,
Yeah.
that I'm just trying to make sure that that is embedded in everything that we do, and I'm trying to prove that we can do that and still have a resilient security program. You um,
Yeah. I love it. This turned out exactly as good as I thought it would. Josh,
uh,
thank you so much for being our first guest on my first guest on this new podcast. Again, the book is "Don't Forget the Humans," available on Amazon and all the other places. We will have some links to the in the description below. Please like and subscribe, leave some comments, do all of that fun YouTube stuff. And for those of you that are thinking of coming to CloudCon next year in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and if you're not thinking about it, you should start thinking about it. Josh is going to be our keynote presenter for that next year. The theme is going to be "Don't Forget the Humans," as we really will spend 2 days focusing in on the human side of technology. So we are looking forward to that. Josh, again, thank you so much for being a part of this. Great conversation, and we'll see everyone for episode 2.